Good morning, all of you. Myself, Dr. Sarita Tiwari, and I'm a PhD in microbiology and presently working as a consultant with Fumident. And today I'm going to discuss on one of the most worldwide emerging topic nowadays, that is COVID-19. All of you have heard a lot about it on TV, read in newspaper, but today we'll discuss COVID-19 in more details. My presentation will include the introduction about the virus, what are its modes of transmission, the historical aspects of how this virus emerged in human, what are the facts and myths that are going on nowadays, is there any vaccination approach for this virus, what are the preventive measures that we can take at our end, and what are the standard practices of sterilization and disinfection with respect to medical practitioners. So firstly, if we want to defeat our enemy, we should know the whole detail about our enemy. Likewise, if we want to COVID-19 disease, we should know the detail about the virus which is causing it. So COVID-19 is caused by the virus named SARS-CoV-2, that is Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus. This virus is not indigenous to human. Actually, it jumped from animals to human. In short, we can say that it is a zoonotic disease. These viruses have a tendency of widespreading. That's why WHO has declared it as public health emergency of international concern. If we'll talk about the structure of the virus, the virus appears spherical in shape and it is covered by the envelope in its outer region. This envelope comprises of spike proteins which is responsible for attachment of virus with the host cell. These viruses contain single-stranded RNA as its genetic material, which makes it more vulnerable in compared to other viruses. As I have already told you that it is a zoonotic disease, so this virus doesn't come all of a sudden in 2020 and started creating such nuisance. There is a history behind this viruses. It was existing in the environment in many different animals, and then it transferred to bat. In 2003, it come in the picture when the virus transferred from bat to the cat and then to the human in China only. The disease was called as the SARS disease, and the virus which was responsible for causing this disease is SARS-CoV. Then this virus was very much dreadful. It was very lethal and killed many people at that time. Then these virus again re-entered in 2012 in Arabian Peninsula region, and the disease was termed as MERS, that is Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, and the virus was named as MERS-CoV virus. And this time the virus transferred from camel to the human. Then the people from Arabian region have transferred to the Korean Republic, and again in 2015 it affected the Korean Republic people due to the movement of Arabian people to the Korea. And then finally and again in 2019 it comes in the picture that we all know, COVID-19, which is caused by the virus SARS-CoV-2, we generally call as coronavirus. Coronavirus, that is SARS-CoV-2, is less lethal in comparison to SARS and MERS. You can see them from the mortality rate that SARS causes 10% death while MERS 20 to 30%. While in case of COVID, only 2 to 3% mortality rate is present. So from here only we can analyze that its mortality rate is less. But COVID-19 has a fast spreading phenomenon, and because of that it has spread worldwide and it has become a big worldwide concern. So we'll see how these viruses interact with the human host cell. Virus loves its favorite pathway to enter inside host is the receptor. The spike which is present on the surface of virus attached with the receptor present on the host cell. In humans, these receptors are present in the lung cells and the gut. So firstly, these virus, when it entered inside human body, it make attachment, it makes bonding with the receptors present on the cell, and then it start invading the cell. And once it becomes successful, the genetic material, that is the single stranded RNA, enters inside the cell and the rest of the portion remains outside. Now I have already told you that coronavirus has single stranded RNA. So it will make the infected cell to translate the genetic material. Now the infected cells reads the RNA and begins making proteins that will keep the immune system in bay. Now the genetic material will start making multiple copies of it, and simultaneously it will involve in synthesis of structural protein. Now when after some time, when it has made sufficient amount of genetic material and the structural protein, it will start assembling the virus structure. So it will bring genetic material and other structural proteins and make a viral copies, and after that it will burst the cell and come out of it and start finding new host to infect it. So like this, the virus infect the host cell. Now virus enters inside human body through mouth, nose and ears, and the different activity which are responsible for mobilization of these viruses are: firstly, the respiratory droplets from the infected person. These droplets can travel up to 3 to 6 feet and can remain on any inanimate object from 4 to 48 hours depending upon the nature of the material. The other possibility is by the direct contact with the infected person. This also is responsible for propagation of viruses. With the medical healthcare practitioner, if the surgical instruments and other things that they are using in their day-to-day activity, if it has come in contact with the infected person and it has not been sterilized properly, it also is responsible for transmission. If we'll talk about the dentistry practicing, so aerosol is a big threat for dental practice, because accidental consumption of fecal matter or aerosols is also responsible for the transmission of this dreadful disease. So this all should be taken in consideration, and we should act for stopping this transmission through these activities. Now, corona carriers. The individual who are suffering from COVID-19 disease are corona carriers. These are further divided into subtypes. The first one is the symptomatic carriers. Symptomatic carriers are those who are suffering from COVID-19 with the symptoms such as cough, cold, fever, headache, etc. The next type is the pre-symptomatic carriers. These are the individuals who have been tested positive with COVID-19, but they didn't generate any of the symptoms during the time of testing, but later on they developed these symptoms. And the last type is the asymptomatic carriers, also known as silent carriers. These are the individuals which have no symptoms during the course of infection, even though they are infected with the COVID-19 disease. So these types are more dangerous in compared to other two, because these up to asymptomatic carriers can become a more threat for communicable transmission. The scientific person who are keeping count on the number of infected persons of COVID-19, these asymptomatic carriers will be a big headache to them. As per the report of CDC, 25% of the infected COVID-19 persons are asymptomatic. means there is no symptoms during their course of infection. So we can't say that only the person which are suffering for COVID-19 will generate symptoms. There are certain category of asymptomatic carriers which can silently spread these virus in the human community. So nowadays there are many facts and myths which are going on in TV, internet, and there you people have lots of query that which is right and which is wrong. So we'll discuss some of the highlighted myths related to coronavirus. Firstly is the how long does coronavirus last on the surface? Now as per the report of World Health Organization, these coronavirus can persist on surface from few hours to several days. So we can't confirmately say that 4 hours में ये virus मर जाएगा या 24 hours में. So we should be little bit preventive in that term. Second is what are the condition which is non-optimal for the virus propagation. So as per research literature from Campt et al. 2020, low temperature and high air humidity sees the virus lifespan. Next myth is how far these respiratory droplets can travel in air. So as per some scientific reports, these viruses can travel at a distance of 3 to 6 feet. Nowadays, there are many myths related to whether we should wear mask or not against these viruses. So as per the CDC reports, the mask should be worn by only the infected person. And still further investigations are going on whether everyone should wear this mask or only the medical practitioners and the ill-affected person. One of the myths that is going on is the use of antibiotic against coronavirus. Against this myth, World Health Organization has said no to it. But FDA approves anti-malarial medication, that is hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine against these viruses. But still rigorous studies is in progress. So we can't blindly use these medicine for against coronavirus. And lastly, myth is this virus mutating in a strong strain. But as per the research which has been carried out by many researchers, there is no such significant outcome that these viruses are mutating dreadfully. So these are the facts and myths related to the coronavirus. Now, as the doctor says, prevention is better than cure. So why we go for treatment when there are many preventive measures which we can follow? So these preventive measures should be followed strictly for your safety also and for others. Now the preventive measures that should be followed firstly is to maintain a good hand hygiene. We should wash hand before and after treatment. The personal protective equipment which is being used by the medical practitioner should be sterilized, should be properly sterilized. The surfaces which are in contact with the patients and other equipment, it should be disinfected, including waiting room. As per the recommendation of OSHA, the dental practitioner can use N95 mask and European Union suggests FFP2 mask for prevention from respiratory droplets and aerosols. Regular and timely fumigation should be maintained with respect to the dental clinic because it will make the environment and clinical zone microbes free. I will say that at this particular time, the dental practitioner should avoid overcrowding at the clinic because it will directly lead to the close contact with person and we don't know who are infected and who not. So most preferably you should confirm the appointments of the patients on phone only, so this will also eliminate the crowding of the patients. And most important is to refer the CDC, ADA and OSHA guidelines related to the COVID-19 with respect to preventive measures. If you will strictly follow these preventive measures, then there is no chance of getting infected with this dreadful virus. Now, someone will have the query that following strictly these preventive measures are not possible all the time. So is there any alternative approach against this disease like vaccination? So as we all know that whenever any antigen enters inside the human body, naturally our immune system produces antibody against it. This is called as the natural immunity. And if we get a vaccination against any virus, so our body generate a adaptive immunity and it is more specific in comparison to natural immunity. These vaccination mainly comprise of attenuated virus, that is ineffective virus, or protein part of these virus which creates adaptive immunity by generating antibody inside our body. Now with respect to coronavirus, about 35 companies and academic institutions are involved in vaccination preparation. The first successful attempt of vaccine preparation was done by Boston-based biotech firm named Moderna. Presently it is under human trial. They will go under human trial immediately, but still all this process will take 1 year. The another academic institute like University of Pittsburgh has developed vaccine Pitocovac using viral proteins, and they have successfully trialed this vaccine mice, and this mice can produce antibodies sufficient to neutralize the virus. So these news are good, but all these process needs extensive human clinical trials and FDA approval before launching into market. So we have to wait for some time for getting the vaccination approach against this disease. So the standard practices which should be followed by the medical healthcare practitioners with related to sterilization and disinfection, as we know that sterilization kills all forms of microbial including viruses. For sterilization we mostly prefer moist and dry heat, that is autoclave, ethylene oxide gas, hydrogen peroxide gas plasma, as well as UV can be used for surface disinfection. The chemicals that we can use for surface disinfection is 0.1% sodium hypochlorite, 62 to 71% ethanol with 1 minute exposure time. One point should be noted that efficacy of chemicals differ from area to area, and it depends on some factors such as organic and inorganic load, what are the types and level of microbial contamination, like vegetative microbial cell can be killed easily, but endospores and virus requires high concentration with more exposure time, and also concentration and exposure time of chemical sterilant is also important. So if we'll consider all these points, we can successfully sterilize and disinfect the surgical instruments and other glasswares or parts that we are using in day-to-day practices. But one thing, lack of compliance with established guidelines for disinfection and sterilization can lead to outbreak of these disease. As per CDC, all medical facility should monitor their autoclave before sterilization with biological and chemical indicators. For more details, you can visit our Fumident's website, that is www.fumident.com. With this, we end our topic, that is COVID-19, and I request all to stay safe and stay at home for less communicable transmission of this disease. Thank you.